Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Fandom News Now. I'm Zach Arnold, and this is a Fandom Empire exclusive that I'm very excited to bring to you. But I'm also very excited that I'm not bringing this particular episode to you alone. There's a lot of really awesome content to break down, to talk about, and just a very short time in which to do it. So to help me try and break it all down, I have called in the executive producer, the founder, the creator, the head honcho of Fandom Empire. Sean, thanks so much for helping me out tonight, man. This is a really crazy night and crazy week as far as new stuff is concerned.
Man, you started talking and saying all these nice things about this guy, and I immediately started to look around to see if Kieran or Tommy B was here. So
it's definitely by committee, but that committee was formed by you, so credit where it is due, sir. On tap tonight, we've got all kinds of really great things, including Paramount announcements, Disney Plus announcements, and the big one that dropped yesterday, the official title of the new Spider-Man movie. They had been teasing this for quite some time about, possibly being Spider-Man Home Slice. Somebody joked about that. And I think there were 3 different alternate titles that were thrown out there this week. And then yesterday, you see a video of Tom Holland, Zendaya, and Jacob Batalon discussing why director John Watts was continuing to provide them with fake titles. And then as they walk past this whiteboard, you see what the official title turns out to be, and it becomes Spider-Man No Way Home. So the sequel to Homecoming and Far From Home is officially titled No Way Home, and there's a lot of speculation going around the internet as to what that name could possibly mean, what kind of implications it has. But I'm curious what you think of this name, Sean, and what kind of connections it may have to the MCU as a whole and to the Spider-Man franchise.
So when they'd only showed the one title, which was Phone Home, I was really puzzled, and everybody thought it was true at first.
Right.
So I reached out to, got to be careful what I say here, somebody who absolutely would know and has told me for months they know the title. And immediately he said, well, everybody's like, oh, this is the title, this is the title. He's like, if you believe that, you're gullible. That is not the title. Just sit tight. And sure enough, the next day, the title comes. Right. I think the obvious thing that shows here, dude, is No Way Home. People are going to be like, oh, well, everyone's going to read into it as multiverse, but reality, it's going to be he can't go home because he's wanted at the end of the second movie. And I think that's what they want you to believe, when in reality, it absolutely is everything to do with the multiverse.
I definitely believe it has something to do with the multiverse. I do think there is going to be some implication to, now wanting to be coerced into joining the Sokovia Accords now that his powers and his identity have been revealed. But I think there's possibly a third option that I won't dive too deep into, but it has to do with a combination of the multiverse and something that's going on with WandaVision and how those could potentially tie into one another, because Wanda Maximoff is supposed to show up in the new Doctor Strange movie, and apparently Multiverse of Madness is going to have connections to Spider-Man 3, which has now been titled No Way Home. So there's a lot of connections with these 3 pieces of the MCU, and hopefully they actually provide the crossover that we're anticipating, but I guess only time will tell. This movie is slated to have a Christmas 2021 release date. So
is it Christmas Day? I was confused about that.
Well, they said Christmas, which means it probably is either the 25th or the 24th. But as we know from Star Wars, they say Christmas, but it really comes out like the week before so that people can see it on Christmas Day. I guess it may partially depend on how lifted COVID restrictions are by the end of the year, and that may help kind of determine when the exact date's going to be. But mid to late December is the expectation. I'm curious to know what the chat thinks about the title and if they are as excited for the Spider-Man movies as I think the two of us are. So be sure to send us a chat. And if you have any questions for us for the Q&A segment at the end of the show, be sure to go ahead and start sending those in so that we can get to them at the tail end of the program. And as always, super chats are the ones that are going to get a lot of priority because we see them just a little bit easier, and it's easier for our chat mods to track down. Going on to some other announcements that have come out recently, we got the official announcement not too long ago that the Bad Batch, which is the spin-off / sequel series to Star Wars The Clone Wars, got an official release date. First episode is dropping, of course, Star Wars Day, May the 4th. So the Bad Batch were introduced in the final season of the Clone Wars and features Clone Force 99, consisting of Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, Crosshair, and now Clone Trooper Echo. The previews had previously shown potential operations that followed the events of Order 66, and they're even seen having conversations with Grand Moff Tarkin at one point. So it's kind of logical that it would be a May the 4th release date, but I'm expecting weekly episodes like we've been getting from WandaVision, what we're going to get from The Falcon and Winter Soldier, what we got from the last season of the Clone Wars. So I really don't know how much hype we're supposed to have for this, Sean, because we're only getting one episode, but that one episode is going to be happening on Star Wars Day, which I guess is pretty cool.
I do think we get a second episode like 3 or 4 days later.
That's possible.
I'm excited. I'm cautiously excited because I wasn't like stoked with the Bad Batch, but like in terms of their season 7 arc, I thought it was okay.
Right.
I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was great. I thought it was good.
Right.
But man, when they showed that Bad Batch trailer, dude, I was blown away. I was like, oh. Order 66, Clone Wars sequel, basically. Sign me up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty excited, dude.
Yeah, you and me both. I like the idea of continuing in the Clone Wars animation style, but taking us on adventures that aren't within the confines of the actual Clone War, seeing some of the aftermath, seeing some of the repercussions, seeing the formulation of the Empire. I think those are all really interesting aspects that can definitely be explored in this Clone Wars format. The other thing that I think is really going to work well for this show in particular, just looking at the recent success that has been with Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, you're able to pump out animated shows a heck of a lot easier than live, in-person shows right now. Because of COVID, you're able to animate from one department. You're able to send in your voice work from home, more or less. Like everything can be broken up into little tidbits and then assembled. So I think we can expect more and more of the Bad Batch as we wait for other shows like Mandalorian and things like that to return. I think animation is going to be the key to the continuation of certain franchises for the near future. And the Bad Batch looks like it could be just that for Star Wars.
I certainly hope so. I mean, I didn't have the highest expectations, and then I seen that trailer, man, and I was actually caught off guard how much I was blown away by it. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
I think that's a good term for it. Our friend Matt Whitfield in the chat says, not a big fan of the title, though I love the way the Spider-Man movies are heading. After that finale of Far From Home, I would definitely be inclined to agree with you, Matt. That's a great input. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the support. And thanks for your input.
Let me ask
Continuing
you, Zach,
with the Star Wars trend. I'm sorry, dude. What?
Before we get too far into show notes here, I forgot to mention this, or at least ask this. Do you think No Way Home is meant to possibly set up Miles Morales as Spider-Man in the MCU, and that's going to exit Tom Holland into the Venom Sonyverse?
So I think there's a two-pronged answer to that, and the first answer to that question would be no, and the second answer to that question would be yes. I do see Tom Holland exiting the MCU into the Venomverse via the multiverse. I feel like that's just the logical way to keep Holland employed and keep him doing Spider-Man, but have him doing things for Sony now. That makes sense to me. The tough part is trying to figure out the Miles Morales stuff, because I've seen some new speculation online, as of today, that the outline of the No Way Home is intentional. The way that it's drawn actually resembles the island of Puerto Rico, which is Miles Morales' country of origin. So there is the potential for him to be in there if that speculation is correct, but I think we've got a long way to go before we start speculating on Miles Morales, because I think the whole point of exiting Holland was because the Disney was losing some of the rights to Spider-Man. So bringing in Miles Morales doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because the only way they could do that is by extending their agreement with Sony. But if they're doing that, you might as well just keep Tom Holland in the franchise instead of trying to cast somebody new. So I don't know if I see the introduction of Miles Morales happening just yet, although I would definitely like to, considering the storyline we got of his in Into the Spider-Verse. But I guess only time will tell. Okay, going back to the Star Wars universe really quick. We were talking about the Bad Batch, but they're not the only special forces that are getting some special attention from the Star Wars universe. Republic Commando, a fan favorite game from 2005, is coming to PS4 and Switch in April. For those looking to behave like Clone Force 99, you may do so when the game becomes available on those platforms. The popular Xbox game is going to get an HD remaster and will appear on PS4 and Nintendo Switch. Now you can go on missions with Delta Squad in a whole new way and experience missions like never before. What I'm curious is what platform you guys in the chat are actually going to be using, because there's a lot of people that are jumping on the Nintendo Switch wagon right now. There's a lot of people that are very interested in playing with the VR goggles on. Even if it's not going to be VR compatible, you can still play PlayStation 4 games with the VR headset on, and it just turns it into a really big screen. And since you can do a first-person perspective with that game, there's a very good chance that you could play a very interactive style of Republic Commando with those VR headsets on. So I'm curious what y'all in the chat think, and Sean, I'm curious what you think about this release, and are you going to be trying to track down this HD remaster in some capacity?
So I got the remasters of Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, and Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast on Jade and Zachary's Nintendo Switch Lite they have. I think that's what it's called, Switch Lite. I don't know.
Okay.
I feel like if I keep buying these things, man, they're going to not let me touch the Switch anymore because it's taking up too much space. I mean, will I eventually get it? Yeah, because I really, really liked Republic Commando. But it's a matter of time. Like, I thought when I downloaded the remastered of Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, like, oh yeah, I'm going to get to this, I'm going to play through it, and it'll be done within a few weeks. Dude, I haven't even played through the first plenty. There's just... the older you get, as you know, the less free time you have, and it's so hard to go and do the things that you want to do.
Oh, yeah.
So will I get it? Yes. Will I have time to play it? I don't know.
That's a very good point. I've got homework assignments that are due Sunday night that I've barely touched, and those were ones that were an extension granted to me because they were supposed to be due last week during the blizzard that hit the Dallas area. So there's been a lot of procrastination that's going on, and I get to push it back at least another day because of obligations that I've got. So, family creeps up, work creeps up. I get it. Speaking of family, it looks like there's going to be a set of brothers, or at least very, very good friends, that are going to be a tandem starring set in the new Disney Pixar movie, Luca. Did you get a chance to catch the trailer before we went on the show, man?
I did not. I don't even know what the movie's about, so you're about to enlighten me.
I'm going to enlighten you and everybody else, I suppose. It's a very interesting looking movie, just from the minute 45 that we got from the trailer. But essentially, it's got that heartwarming feel that you get from movies like Toy Story and Inside Out, but it's got some of the cultural examinations like we get from Coco. And those are the three movies that they actually put in the teaser trailer saying, from the creators that brought you this, this, and this. Those were the three movies that they listed. And it's set in Bayside, Italy. And there's a couple of young characters that are exploring the city. And it looks like just a young person's adventure story at the beginning. But then at one point in the trailer, you see them rolling a bicycle of sorts, maybe a tricycle, off of a ramp and into the water off the edge of the cliff. As soon as their bodies hit the water, they turn into aquatic-like creatures. So apparently they are either spirits or shapeshifters or something that revert to their original aquatic form when they interact with water. Because there's another sequence later on in the trailer where one of them spits water onto another one, and they lose their human form, and half of them turns into more of a fish-like face. So from what I can gather, it looks like a coming-of-age / adventure story with a little hint of mystery in there, because it's like a fishing village almost, and they have a great despise for creatures of the waters, and they don't want to reveal themselves. They want to blend in and be with everybody, and they're worried what people will think if they see them in their true form. So it may have some suspense and some intrigue in there as well, but overall, the general vibe that I got from it was fun, whimsical, adventurous, and heartfelt. And given the current circumstances that we've got going around the world right now, I think that could be just the movie that people need when it's set to release on June the 18th.
Well, I'm intrigued. You mentioned Coco, and I still haven't seen it yet.
Oh, dude, that's one of my favorites. Like that's like my top 3 Pixar movies. Goodness.
I've heard nothing but amazing things, so it's definitely something that I'm going to check out. And now that we have a little sprout who's getting older by the day and developing by the day, sitting down and watching a lot of those type of movies are definitely in the cards. But to older people that watch those movies too, like, there's nothing wrong with that. I love animated movies. I can sit down and watch Lion King any day of the week, and I do mean the original Lion King.
Absolutely. Yeah, the new Lion King, that's a little more debatable, but the the older one I can definitely see just about any time and still enjoy it. Chat, we're getting a little dry here, so I'm going to ask you, what is your top 3 Pixar? That was what I was just talking about with Coco, and I'm curious what your top 3 would be. Tell us your top 3 Pixar movies, and tell us what kind of interest level you may have about this movie, Luca, which is set to come out in June. My top 3 are probably, I would say Coco's up there. I would say Toy Story, obviously, is up there. And Cars is probably up there for me as well.
Not a Big Hero 6 guy?
Big Hero 6 isn't Pixar.
Oh, really? For some reason, I thought it was.
It's Disney animation in conjunction with Marvel, but Pixar had no part of it.
Gotcha. By the way, the chat might not be so dry. I've already gotten 3 messages from people saying YouTube is acting up big time. So there's people that might be trying to watch right now that physically can't get in. There's not a whole lot of control we got over this. My advice would be, if you're trying to get in and it keeps kicking you out, or if it keeps freezing, watch it on the replay, guys. Even though you can't super chat on the replay, the views still help, the likes still help. It all goes a long way to helping the network out.
Isn't it wonderful when technology just refuses to cooperate with us?
Kind of like Messenger failing half the world today, so.
Yeah, well, lucky for me, I was busy and didn't even notice that malfunction, but I know a lot of people that were inconvenienced by it. It sucks. It sucks when technology is supposed to be the thing that brings us into the modern era, and then as soon as we lose it, we turn into Neanderthals and don't know how to cope. But that's all the commentary I'm going to provide for that, because we got some other commentary, and this is a piece of news that I was actually really, really looking forward to. I am a big fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't know if you've seen any of that show, but that show and Legend of Korra are 2 of some of the best pieces of storytelling that I've seen in a while. And it's interesting because Dave Filoni was an executive producer on Avatar: The Last Airbender before he came to work in Star Wars. So it's got a really good pedigree, and it's just a really good show. Has anybody gotten you into either of those shows yet?
I've certainly had people try to get me into those shows. Jade and Tommy B are both very high on those. Mm-hmm. I did tell Jade the news when it dropped that it sounds like they're going to do some more animated Avatar: The Last Airbender movies and shows in the universe. So yes. I think that's, like, even though I don't know anything about it, I know how big it is. I know how many people weren't fan of the live action movies. So I think a return back to its roots on both fronts is going to make a lot of people very happy.
Well, they're also working on a live action series adaptation for Netflix. And the original show creators, the guys who created Avatar: The Last Airbender, Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, they were supposed to be executive producers on that show as well. And then a couple of weeks ago, they left the program, and it was said to have been because of creative differences. Now that Paramount Plus has announced this entire section called Avatar Studios, like they're getting a whole division, essentially, called Avatar Studios. And like you said, it's going to be a revival of the franchise, essentially. There's going to be new animated series. There's going to be new animated movies. They're going to dive into some live action as well. But it's going to be a whole studio. It's going to be a whole subsection of Paramount in conjunction with Nickelodeon that's going to be bringing back this world. So it's really interesting because fans are already lobbying for a series that stars Avatar Kyoshi, who was the Avatar that preceded Roku, who was the Avatar that preceded Aang, who is the star in ATLA. Apparently, Kyoshi's got a couple of novels that are super popular that people want to see brought into some kind of screen capacity. Another thing that people are lobbying for is a sequel to the Legend of Korra series so that they can explore her relationship with Asami Sato. Her relationship, Korra having a girlfriend, was a topic that Nickelodeon was very hesitant to explore, but there's a distinct possibility that it could be more visible in the modern era and on a platform such as Paramount Plus. So there's a lot of speculation, a lot of questions about what could happen, but also a lot of excitement because the showrunners of the original programs are going to be the guys heading up Avatar Studios. So, you know, there's going to be some really cool stuff on Paramount Plus. That's one of my favorite things. They've got a project that is set to start work in 2021, possibly come out in 2022. But I know that there's other stuff that Paramount Plus has announced as well.
Tons.
I think Toronto Freddy was just in the chat saying, I like the look of the Rugrats CGI show. And that is something else that's happening. They're reviving Rugrats on Paramount Plus as well and bringing back the original cast, if I saw the announcement correctly. So that is also something to be on the lookout for when Paramount Plus starts unfurling some of its original content.
That's huge. I literally was just saying to Jade within the last couple of weeks, like, why isn't Rugrats still a thing? Like, Rugrats was so good and so much high. I know towards the tail end of it kind of got in. I never liked all growing up, but like Rugrats, it was so high quality. And I mean, as much as people focus on the babies, the parents are hilarious in that show.
Yes.
And I just love everything about it. I don't know if I agree with Freddie in terms of the look, but that's subjective. As long as the voice cast is back and they tell good stories, I'm for it. I'm excited that Jensen's going to be able to grow up with I guess, his era of Rugrats.
It can be a catch-22, though, because I felt similar excitement over the continuation of the Thomas the Tank Engine series. And then I saw the animation style that they're doing and the way that they're doing it now. And I thought, oh, my God, just kill the show already. Like, just get rid of it. Don't do this. Did you ever see the show JJ the Jet Plane?
No, I did not.
Oh my God, it was this horrible PBS show from the 90s where they took like these terribly animated fake jet planes and put like people's faces on the end of it and like animated them to where like their lips moved and they talked and they learned these life lessons in this tiny little town. And some of them had the most god-awful accents and some of them just moved really weird. Some of their faces looked like pedophiles. Like, it was just awful. And that's what kind of vibe I got from the new Thomas the Tank Engine. And I was like, oh my God, just stop. Don't do this to my favorite piece of my childhood. Just stop. So here's hoping that Rugrats doesn't turn out that way. But by bringing back the original cast, I definitely think that they're starting things off on the right foot.
Toronto Freddy said, I'm not too excited about Fairly Odd Parents live action, though.
No, I can't say I blame you. Out of all the things that were going to get a live action, that was one of the last things I would have put on my list. But it is what it is. Continuing with some of the release date announcements, there were a couple of Disney Plus announcements that were made expecting the pilot episodes or the first premiere episodes of shows that have been ordered. These were both shows that were announced during Disney Investors Day, which released a whole lot of information about Marvel, about Disney, about Star Wars. But some of the bigger ones that were announced are now finally making their way to the platform. One of the first ones is what's going to be coming in June. The Loki series is set to debut on Disney Plus on June 11th. With WandaVision almost concluding and The Falcon and Winter Soldier going at least through April, it would appear that this series starring Tom Hiddleston is going to be the third series. And because it's at the place that it is, there's also a very distinct possibility that one more series could be coming after them, even though they haven't announced anything yet. But having something in the summer and then not having anything until December with Spider-Man seems like there's a bit of a gap in there. So Loki is what we're expected to get in June, and then we may have something else down the pipe in the fall. We will let you know about that as it occurs. But dude, were you expecting to see Loki so soon? I really wasn't expecting to see him until like 2022, honestly.
It's kind of crazy when you think about, I believe, not Captain America, sorry, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is March.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in April, I can't remember what it is. And then May you have the Bad Batch. And then June you have Loki. Is Black Widow July? I know that's not Disney Plus.
I forget when Black Widow is supposed to be. But honestly, I had forgotten that was still a thing.
We're basically going to get something major every month this year. It's
more or less
pretty crazy.
I hadn't even thought about that. I honestly had completely forgotten that Black Widow was still a thing.
I literally told Jade, like, there's no way we can. One, we'd have to make a lot more money at Fandom Empire in order to bring more people in and to do more shows, or you just kill your algorithm. But two, it's like, there's no way we can cover. You almost have to pick and choose what you're going to cover because of how much there's going to be.
Yep. Luckily, we're going to be scratching the surface on a little bit of everything, but we're not going to be able to do episode reviews or anything like that on FNN. We'll just be like, oh, here's what's coming up next. And speaking of what's coming up next, we are also getting a Monsters, Inc. sequel coming in July. In fact, it's 4th of July weekend for us in the States. Monsters at Work is officially set to debut July 2nd. The show sees a return of John Goodman and Billy Crystal from their hit movie in 2001 and the prequel that was released in 2013. You can also expect Jennifer Tilly, John Ratzenberger, and Bob Peterson to reprise their roles. And IMDb has listed guest voices, including the likes of Henry Winkler, Aisha Tyler, and even Kelly Marie Tran. So even if it's not Marvel related, there's still going to be a new Pixar show looking at the casting and group from the Monsters, Inc. universe. And honestly, that is probably one of my favorite universes to explore just because of the diversity of monsters that you can get. And it sounds like they're going to be doing a lot with that franchise now as well, which I personally am rather excited for.
Well, I'm going to say something that people aren't going to like, and if Jade's watching, she already knows what I'm going to say.
Uh-oh.
I don't care for Monsters, Inc. one bit. I never have. I could never get it. I'm not saying it's not good, because obviously to have the success that they've had, it's really fucking good. But for me, it just, I don't know. It has never captured me. It's not like, oh, I can't wait to watch Monsters, Inc. I don't know. Although I did enjoy the little short that was on Disney Plus with the car.
The one with Mike and Sully in the car?
Yeah. I thought that was quite comical.
I did enjoy that as well. That was one of their better pieces. I will concede that Monsters University probably wasn't the best thing that they ever made, but some of the colorization and the music and the storytelling, characterization, like there were just a lot of pieces of the original Monsters, Inc. movie that resonated so well for me. And if I was making a top 5, it would probably be in that top 5 up there with like Coco and Cars and the likes of that. So I'm curious. I'm optimistic to see what they're going to do with the franchise. If they're bringing back most of the original cast, then I think they're going to try and do as much respect by it as they possibly can. But I guess we'll see when the first episode drops.
1 second.
on 4th of July weekend.
Sorry to cut in here, Zach. I do know for sure we're having technical issues because our live viewers just went from 13 to 49, back down to 13, back up into the 40s, back into 13 within a 10-second period. So YouTube is having some issues. For those that are watching after the fact, apologies. There's no control over it, sadly. So
lovely. Well, then I guess this is as good a time as any to plug all of our socials. Go out to Fandom Empire on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all that sort of stuff to be able to stay engaged with what kind of content FNN is going to end up talking about. Because if you see something that you really, really want us to discuss, be sure to hit us up on those different places or hit me up at Zach the Voice on Twitter and just let us know what you want to see us talking about so that we can be sure it gets talked about even if you can't join us in the chat. We got a couple more things to talk about before we go to the Q&A segment, but we may end up just asking each other questions if we can't get the chat to work properly, Sean.
Fine with me.
Say again?
Fine with me. Fine with me.
Yeah, we may forego the Q&A segment this week just because we don't want to make anybody feel left out, for one thing. But if you do want to contribute to this and to Fandom Empire as a whole, you can check out the Patreon as well. The link's in the description. Thank you all for being a part of what we do here. Couple more things to talk about before we call it a night. Number one being there was an interview with Kevin Feige who mentioned that there are currently no plans for R-rated MCU content outside of Deadpool 3. But he was quoted saying that if it makes sense, quote, we will discuss it, end quote. So this whole concept of making sense really kind of rubs me the wrong way and probably rubs a lot of people the wrong way because it's raised question marks in the community about if this means they're going to try and make Mahershala Ali's Blade film PG-13. We all know Blade's not exactly a character that should be PG-13, but this type of conversation without mentioning it seems to indicate that that's a possibility. It should also be worth noting that all of the content of the Marvel TV shows that were on Netflix have now reverted back to Disney. And those shows like Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage were all rated TVMA. So if he's saying that there is no plans for MCU content that is going to be, more mature audience oriented, then that means Deadpool 4 could be in question. That means Daredevil could be in question. That means, some sort of movie in the vein of Logan could be in question. And that means that Blade could end up being something along the lines of PG-13 unless they end up, quote unquote, discussing it and deciding to make it R after all. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on this news.
I mean, it does sound like they're going the PG-13. Sorry, I'm totally losing my voice here. I don't know how you're not losing yours after 5 hours of baseball today, man. This is nuts.
I rested it for about 3 hours after that, and I'm drinking lots of water.
I need to get myself some water when we get off air. Basically, it sounds like Blade's going to be PG-13. I know that's going to rub a lot of people the very wrong way. However, I still think you can make good PG-13 movies, but it's probably not going to be as edgy as they want it to be. I will say this on the Deadpool thing, though. If Deadpool is going to be rated R, and if it's going to be in the MCU, and the MCU now has a multiverse, can you just go back and drop the Brinks truck at Hugh Jackman's doorstep? Because there's no reason you can't do Deadpool and Wolverine like Ryan Reynolds has now revealed was the case. It can just be a different Wolverine from a different multiverse. It doesn't need to be the same. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up happening because obviously there's no way the people at Disney don't know, oh, Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, goldmine.
Right. No, exactly. No, I completely agree. Like that type of a team up would be great. And then Next Gen Studios in the chat says, do you think Deadpool could be teased in a post-credit scene for Spider-Man No Way Home? In the comics, the two of them have a really interesting relationship, but I still don't see it happening. I feel like Feige has this stigma associated with Deadpool. Like, yeah, it's going to make us money. No, I don't really approve of it. So I think they're going to keep it loosely in the MCU just so that it can be enough to make money. but I don't see it really connecting with a whole lot of the MCU directly, like Spider-Man, like, Hugh Jackman and the X-Men. I don't see that type of connection being super concrete because Feige is just not interested in that type of R-rated content being a part of his universe.
Feige is, people like to go and get on the Kathleen Kennedy hate train, and I've known to be there from time to time, but Kevin Feige is extremely stubborn about what he does too. If he thinks something needs to be done a certain way, then that's how he's going to do it, whether anybody likes it or not.
Yeah, well, when you get to that point in Marvel Studios, you get to make those types of decisions, and if you want to be a butthead about it, that's your prerogative.
Kieran in the chat, this is slightly off topic, asks, what do you think of the John Cena-led Suicide Squad spin-off Peacemaker? We haven't seen the character, and he has a show. This is honestly news to me. I hadn't heard this, so this one slipped past me.
I think it came out a couple of weeks ago, but it seemed so mundane at the time that I didn't feel like it was worth even mentioning, because I don't really see a whole lot happening from it, honestly. Like, I don't think John Cena is a strong enough actor to warrant getting his own show, for one. And I don't think Peacemaker is going to be as big of a character and as popular of a character as DC is hedging their bets on. So you can make this all you want, but I don't see it really getting a whole lot of traction or really going anywhere. So, yeah, it's very odd, Kieran, but I really don't see a whole lot coming of it. I don't think Cena deserves it, and I think eventually the viewership will reflect that opinion.
I think DC thinks John Cena is Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
I could see that.
And he's not. He wasn't in wrestling. He sold a bunch of merch, did his craft as well as he could for what he did. Kids are the ones that bought his merch. Maybe that's a good thing in terms of, depending on what type of movie it is.
Kids are growing up and they're buying more of his stuff, and maybe they'll be the ones that watch it, but I don't think I will. I don't think I'm going to waste my time on it.
Kieran says he's basically a Captain America who's nuts and kills people. Somewhat find that intriguing.
I would not. If I want to watch morally gray people with powers, I'm going to go watch The Boys on Amazon.
I watched season 1 of that. It was quite good. I haven't brought myself to watch season 2 yet.
I'm kind of waiting to see if I should wait for season 3 and then just binge it or something. But we'll
Jensen
see.
Ackles from Supernatural's in season 3. He's basically playing their version of Captain America.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, with Carl Urban being one of the headliners and having the type of storytelling that it has, it's definitely something that I'm going to be looking into in the not too distant future. I just got, as you know, a crap ton of other stuff that I'm trying to do as well. So
it's hard to juggle it all.
Trying to watch a new show on top of all that other stuff. That's a lot. Oh man. Anyways, one last segment of the evening before we go to Q&A. There's a little bit of chat activity. We might answer a couple of questions before we close it out, but we're getting pretty late into our program anyways. So, Sean, for the people that may have missed some of the stuff that you guys talked about over on the Fandom Empire show just, a half hour ago, can you give us a brief recap on the Halloween news that just recently dropped?
So, a lot of people are very cynical about things. They'll go, well, how does this YouTube channel who has only, 2,600 subscribers have any insider info? I have said all my life, I've grown up thinking this way. It's the way my grandfather thought. It's the way my dad thinks. It's the way I think. And I'd like my kids to think that way too. Sometimes it doesn't matter how much you know. As sad as it is, the world sort of revolves around about who you know. You can be the smartest guy on the planet, but if you don't have any connections, then that's not really going to matter too much. And I'm blessed to have met a couple of individuals over the last couple of years that come across this info. I'm more blessed that they've been super accurate with their info, which allows us to have some credibility here at the channel and sort of grow. As you know, Zach, we were Star Wars Wastelands for a long time. Then we sort of expanded and, Fandom Cantina, Rebel Fandom, and eventually fell on Fandom Empire. And a lot of it is thanks to the few connections that we did make. And They were spot on all of our Halloween 2018 stuff. They were spot on our kill stuff. There's no reason to think that they're not spot on Halloween Ends. And basically, we just had a super successful stream, Halloween Ends, that we didn't spoil the movie. We gave away bullet points of what you can expect in Halloween Ends without finding out if this character dies or that character dies or how it ends, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my advice to people would be to go check out that stream that just happened. It's titled Halloween Ends, Major Leak, ? And the truth is there is a major leak, and if we're getting it now, that means in 2 or 3 months, maybe sooner, it's going to be all over Reddit, and it won't be from us. It's just the way it works. If it leaked out to the guys that we know, it's going to leak out everywhere. Dude, you and I both know guys that do a Star Wars podcast that were talking about The Force Awakens spoilers almost a year and a half before the movie came out. Yeah. These things happen even with massive productions, let alone small productions. So I did not read the script leak. I'm going to try not to anyways. I'm tempted because the movie's too far away. But the number one reason we did it was some people don't want to be spoiled. And people are going to go on Reddit and on Twitter and Facebook and Carrier Pigeon and whatever else, MySpace if it still exists.
Carrier Pigeon. That would be a cool new social media name.
And they're going to spoil it.
We're claiming the
people.
copyright on that now, folks.
They're going to spoil it for people because people are dicks, and that's how they operate, and they don't care if they ruin it for anyone else. So be on the lookout. If you like spoilers, then great, you'll be able to find them all soon. And if you don't like spoilers, then you might want to bury your head for as long as 2.5 years if the movie doesn't come out till 2023. But right now, it's slated for 2022. Also, Matt Whitfield in with a super chat. You're a friggin' awesome job, Zach.
And now you're making me blush. Oh, man.
I can see the blush.
Yeah, well, it could be sunburn. Who knows?
I haven't seen the sun in like 3 months here, so let me know what that's like.
Well, it was cloudy today, and we had rain during the second baseball game. I really thought we were going to get rained out. It was starting to pick up, but being out in the weather like that, it'll do something to a light complexion like I've got. Last question of the evening from Next Gen Studios. Would you call the end of Halloween Ends disappointing?
I don't know the end of Halloween Ends, and that's something I'll probably avoid. But in the bullet points that I got, because I didn't read the script, I asked them to just send bullet points so I could save myself from being spoiled. And look, I'm weak. I would have read that script by the end of tonight. Like, I would have stayed up late and just been, geeking out, and then I would have been desperate to talk to somebody else who had read the script that's not the sources. All we were told about the end is it's absolutely not the ending that everybody has been talking about. It's much different, and in capital letters in the bullet points it says controversial ! Like times
lovely,
a dozen. So take for that what you will.
Fascinating. Well, controversial can be both good and bad, I suppose, depending on how you want to look at it, because if it's that controversial, it means it's got that many people talking about it, and there is no such thing as bad press. So who knows? But we'll find out in, I guess, what you said, 2 years or something like that.
It could be October 2022, but I wouldn't bet on it at this point.
Goodness gracious. Well, thanks to everyone who kept watching the show in the midst of the YouTube technical difficulties. Thanks to Matt Whitfield for sending in the super chats. Thanks to people like Next Gen Studios and our chat mods like Kieran and Toronto Freddy. We appreciate you guys being a part of what we do here at Fandom News Now and what we do at Fandom Empire. Sean, thanks so much for helping co-host with me tonight. I know there was a lot to break down and a little time to do it in. I appreciate your time and willingness to help me out with this.
I appreciate what you're doing, man. YouTube's a different game than podcasting. The algorithm needs to work in your favor, and it will, and the numbers will grow, and the show will see more success, and we have the right guy hosting, and I can't wait, because the closer we get to summer, it's the closer we are to the fall movie season, where regardless if you're going to a movie theater or not, basically every movie under the sun's coming out in the fall or winter this year. One way or another. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk about.
It definitely will. But that's all the time we've got for tonight's episode. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Remember to follow Fandom Empire on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so much more. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button to help us with those algorithms that Sean talked about. And be sure to keep tuning in because we got shows about Star Wars, Rick and Morty. There's the primary Fandom Empire show every week. We got FNN every week. And we've got a Supernatural and Game of Thrones program also in the works. You can follow me personally if you want to on Twitter and Facebook at Zach the Voice, Z-A-C-H the Voice, and Zach.thevoice on Instagram. But that's all there is for tonight's episode. We hope to see you next time. I'm Zach Arnold, and that's Fandom News to Me.